welcome to our conclusion of Dispatch. We're going to talk a bit about story today. So if you missed the first video or you're interested in this game, it's fantastic. It's absolutely worth all the praise it gets. It's really fun and it has the opportunity for multiple playthroughs. So any story stuff I tell you now doesn't super matter unless you're doing like an identical playthrough to me. But you're going to be fine regardless. You're going to be fine. Overall, the story was very engaging. Besides those missed beats where, you know, the writers definitely intended you to feel a certain way. But other than that, they did a really good job. One of the complaints I had earlier in the game. Let's talk about it. So we are Mecha Man. And Mecha Man is part of a lineage, a family lineage of all the sort of patriarchs who are Mecha Man. As they get older, they die. The role transfers. Grandfather was Mecha Man, Dad was Mecha Man, until Mecha Man was his father was killed, and you take up the mantle. And Shroud, who is our antagonist of this, is the one that did that. And Shroud's superpower is super probability, which is always a cool power. It's kind of like Domino, whose superpower is luck. Like you just predicting what's going to happen, or everything kind of works out for you because you know what's going to happen, right? So superpowered probability, able to calculate what is supposed to happen. This is a cool gimmick for the main villain, because he's always 1, 2, 3, 4 steps ahead because you're all following exactly what you were supposed to do. Our job, we get honey potted, as I called it. It's really interesting. So there's a lot of comments about this because obviously I deviated from the curve here. I think it's just Chris was very interested because he's like, he never saw it that way when he played it. But once he saw it, he was like, oh, yeah, I totally see why you would think that. And when we talk about honeypotting, it's when a very, very beautiful woman, usually made up to nines, comes and shows an excessive interest in you for some reason, which seems a little odd. Seems a little odd because even if silly things happen, such as in the case in the game, is like, you got spat on, he spits his drink on her, and he kind of is a depressive, he's down in the dumps and all that. It's like, oh, she's super bright and cheery. She still wants to engage with you and still spend time with you. Things like that. I call that being honeypotted. That is generally the word for it. It's happened to me quite a few times, given the nature of my job, is when somebody wants something from me, usually marketing people. I'll be at an event or some sort of thing, a shoot or something like that. And then rather mysteriously, an extremely attractive woman just suddenly shows a lot of interest in me for some reason. And is, a little flirty and things like that. And you're like, And as a deeply married man, I'm like, yeah, it's not going to work. And that doesn't work that way for me. And then they usually change gears because they don't really want to be like that anyway. Usually they're married and are in quite a good relationship. And it's like, oh, okay, we could dispense with this flirtatious bullshit and get on to business, which I find much better when the pretense is dropped very, very quickly. But that's how I saw what was happening with the blonde blazer, is suddenly this superhero, this buxom, beautiful lady is suddenly showing an interest in this guy who's absolutely at rock bottom and isn't leaving him alone and taking care of him. And I was like, okay, what do you want? And ultimately, she does want something, right? It is exactly what's going on. Although you can romance her throughout the game. I did not, because I was like, what do you want? What do you want from me? She wants you to work for Dispatch. So that was my first deviation, I guess, from a lot of people's feelings, because apparently you can kiss her at this point and go that route. It's just not what I was feeling at the time, given the circumstances I just explained to you. So she goes off and you end up working for Dispatch. And you get all the supervillains, including some that you apparently arrested, namely Flambe. You're the one who captured him and cut his fingers off. A lot of gore in the game, which was really nice. And you've got this ragtag bunch of people, of supervillains that are now being reformed. So similar to being in prison, right? They're trying to reform them, turn them into superheroes, make them do good in almost Suicide Squad vein. And your job is to try and bring them together as a unit, because you get the Z team. They're the absolute worst of the worst. They're bottom of the barrel on the leaderboards, blah, blah, blah. And via missions and via talking to them, via meetings and showing authority, you try and unite them, give them a common purpose, which is where the game goes ultimately, and it's fantastically done. It's really good, and this is what I was talking about yesterday, is doing it via gameplay, where they're showing their traits either by misbehaving or behaving or by helping each other, adds a lot of dimensions to how you feel about these characters without it just being regurgitated to you via dialogue. So I think they nailed that. Absolutely nailed it, is adding in the gameplay functionality. Can't say I was a super fan of the little hacking mini games. For me, they kind of got in the way. They're fine. Most of them is extremely simple. I just didn't care for them at all in any way. So moving forward, you have some choices to make, which we talked about yesterday. Is you have to remove someone from the team. So the way they paced this is earlier in the game, like in the very first episode, Flambe is clearly like the douchebag, and you want to get rid of him, but they want him for later in the story, right? So you can kind of see through the curtain here as to what's going on. So he kind of disappears during this entire episode where you have to choose someone to cut from the team. He just vanishes. I don't think he even has a line of dialogue throughout it. They're just like, forget about Flambe for now. And they make you choose between Coupe and Sonar. Both of them are fantastic characters. I really, and rightfully so, to make the game more interesting, I didn't like this decision. I wanted both of them to stick around. But that's the point. They want it to be a relatively tough decision. So it worked out very well. It was done well. I chose to keep Coupe because I liked her versatility better as a character. It kind of came down to just stats as a nerd rather than the personality. I liked them both, so that was a kind of a tie in terms of the actual personality. So I just looked at stats, and Coupe is not only... Coupe is able to either have boosted attack or boosted movement speed, depending on where you put her in the lineup for missions. And I was like, I like that versatility. I'm going to go with that. That makes sense to me. Cool. This was when the game got really interesting, because I knew what was about to happen. Flambe is about to make a big return to the game, and he does. And then sadly, which sucked, is basically because they're not sure who you would have picked, Sonar or Coupe, both of them just kind of disappear for a while and show up occasionally in little cutscenes. And as the story proceeds, we get introduced to a bunch of other people. Blonde Blazer has a boyfriend called Phenomenon. They're breaking up. They do break up, and he's really sad and depressing, and he's not effective, so he joins the team as well. There's also Waterboy, who I hated. Absolutely hated, because he was gross. He vomits water onto everything. He's a bit of a fan favorite. Not for me. I was like, that is just disgusting. That is so gross. I don't want anything to do with it. And all these characters intertwine, including Chase, who used to be a superhero called Trackstar, who has the unfortunate situation. Not only did his family raise you, which you don't find out till much later, his family raised you after your dad died, but his superpower comes with a consequence. The more he uses his super speed, like the Flash, the quicker his body ages. So he's about 40 years old, but he has the body of like an 80 to 90-year-old, right? He's very, very old physically, but he's not, which sucks. And it also means he can't use his powers again before risk of dying of old age. So he's like hampered that way. But he's still got a personality and friendship that he's got going on with the main character. So he's a great character. Royd was my absolute favorite character in the whole game. He's the scientist, engineer, bro. This sort of wonderful character, and every interaction with him was fantastic. Absolutely loved it. And I don't think anybody dislikes him. I can't imagine anybody disliking a character like that. He's just so fun to be around. Just brings joy every time he's on the screen. Really fantastic. Loved it. And then, of course, we have Methuzahla. And Methuzahla is the other romance you can choose. People had a real problem with this. But some people were memeing, but other people, I think, did take it serious. So we can explain it. Is throughout the game, I was like, in terms of romance, if we're going to choose somebody in a video game to romance, I would choose Methuzahla over Blonde Blazer. Not just because of the beginning thing, but I just didn't find that character interesting. It's fine. It's really nice. But I didn't find her interesting. So in the other choice of Methuzahla was more interesting to me. So I was like, okay, between the two, I'm going to romance this one. However, later on, she runs into the Urianger trap at the end of the game, where she's doing things without sharing information. She's keeping stuff from you, which I always say, because some people really don't get this. It's surprising, actually, people who don't get this. Is lies by omission. It bugs me in games when they do this. It certainly infuriates me in real life when people do this. When they keep information from you, and then you'll see people defend it. It's like, well, she didn't lie. Yeah, you did. It doesn't hold up in court. Just keeping information from people that's relevant is still a lie. Whether you agree with that or not, it doesn't really matter. It is, objectively. So she goes down that route of doing things because she thinks they're best, but not telling anybody. And then even when you confront her about it, she doesn't tell anybody. She just says, you should trust me. It's like, well, why? I have no reason to trust you. Everything you've done has been counterintuitive, and you've just not told me about it, and you've been lying to me this whole time. And she's like, just trust me. It's like, well, no. Which turned me away from being the romance option. Ultimately, the game doesn't let you divert at that point, so the game played that way. But for me, that's like, I don't mind you being around. Like, you know what I mean? You could be on the team and all that, but a romance option, no. So my canon ending is not. But she turns out to be good, because obviously that's the way the story goes. And it plays out really well with countering Shroud. Ultimately, the plot of the game, at least for my playthrough, came down to the team being unpredictable. Because that's the only way you can beat somebody who's working with predictability, is being unpredictable. And this ragtag group of superheroes starts doing things that are completely out of character for them. Namely, working together. Striking when they should probably run away, not betraying people when they're supposed to. Blonde Blazer giving up her powers to Trackstar because her power comes from a gem, so she gives it to him because no one saw that coming. And that's what brings down Shroud for the big finale of the game. One thing I really appreciate here is, like, for the last episode, they did draft back in the character that you got rid of, which is a bit interesting because Sonar then became the focus alongside Shroud of the end, which is great because they got more screen time. But it kind of left Coupe out, who's the person I actually chose to stick around. Like, she is around, and she's in the animations and things like that, but she got way less screen time than actually the person I got rid of. It made sense. Like, you could see this coming. It's like, you kick this person off the team, they're probably going to come back for revenge later. Like, it wasn't a surprise. But I would have liked the person I actually chose to stick around to be more prominent. That would have been nice throughout other parts of the games, but they didn't do that. But that was fun because it leads to a boss fight. An actual boss fight that isn't just QTEs. They do it via the mission system where you have to defeat Sonar while the city of LA is burning. So you have a lot of micromanagement to do here with the superheroes. In order to... You have to attack him like 4 or 5 times as he's roaming the city, burning everything. Let's bring this up because this really annoyed me. And apparently... because it gives you stats after each episode of what people did. 80% of people disagree with my choice here. I think it was like 76. And it's wild. It's so wild to me. Sonar goes on a rampage through the city. There's explosions going off. Buildings are burning down. You have to draft in water boys, put fires out. The whole city is burning, and he's a big boss fight where he's just wrecking LA. He's absolutely wrecking LA. You have the final boss fight that night, like at the headquarters, the big showdown, which is fantastically done. It's really beautiful. The animation is second to none. Really nice and interactive. It's QTEs, but it's very interactive. And then you get sort of the conclusion of the story, right? Where if you've gone that way, you we romance Invisigirl. You make friends with everybody, and the team's all united. And then you get the choice to like free Sonar or let him go to jail. And I was like, well, you're going to jail. And so many people are like, how could you do that? Why wouldn't I do that? This guy literally killed a lot of people less than 12 hours ago. Like, burnt this city to the ground today. Like, part of the day. I'm like, why wouldn't we put him to jail? Oh, because he's Sonar, like, get away. It's like, no, absolutely not. Like, no way, shape, or form. If he comes out and he's chill and he wants to rejoin the team and he's reformed and stuff, sure. But I mean, this guy is a murderer, a big-time murderer of a lot of innocent people. I don't think that's somebody I'm just going to be like, come and have a beer. It's okay. All is forgiven. I was very confused. And then, of course, it turns out that most people did let him out. And I'm like, what? And those are the kind of cool things with this game and games like this, and why I enjoy Telltale stuff is... sometimes it's 50-50, and then occasionally you get one where like everybody else just disagrees, or everybody agreed, like overwhelmingly agreed, and you're like, really? That's really interesting to see those stats as how it goes out. I kind of wonder when they're developing these games and they're looking back at the feedback. I imagine any choice that is pretty much 50-50 is what they consider a bad choice for the most part, because it's like, it's not interesting. If it's 50-50, we didn't quite nail the thought process, maybe. Or if certainly if 50-50 is probably okay, but maybe if it's overwhelmingly one way for a choice that they wanted to matter, then that's kind of a problem. Like, we didn't give enough, and I think that's how they iterate and move forward. Depending on sometimes they'll want the overwhelming, sometimes they won't. You get what I mean? They can look at this feedback and say, oh, well, we wanted this to be like a tough choice, yet everybody chose the one way to go. We also wanted this to be a real tiebreaker, and they all went another way. Or we thought we wanted this to be an overwhelming choice, and in fact it was 50-50. Certainly on a first playthrough where you're not going for completionist and all the other ways through. So ultimately, yeah, the story was tight. It was really good. Very, very, very little that I didn't like with it at all. Like, enjoyed it the whole way through. Led to a lot of good decisions and feedback and discussion about things going on, which I think is great, because a lot of people see things in very different ways, and you're explaining how you see it. They're like, no, I don't see it that way, and that's great. That's really interesting. That's got that Expedition 33 vibe to it, where we get to the ending of that game and you're like, okay, well, I think this and I think that. So big props to Dispatch. Really enjoyed it. Recommend it the whole way through. And of course, given what I've just told you, there's at least a totally different way of keeping sonar and romancing the blonde blazer. Those are just one very obvious route you can go, but there's tons of them. There's lots and lots of different ways. How it affects the ending, I don't know, because ultimately I think it's probably relatively similar, but will twist away in some different ways. So Dispatch, fantastic. S tier, absolute S tier. Bye guys.